Hi, I'm Anita. This is a matwork Pilates class suitable for beginners and experienced alike. All you need is an exercise mat or a comfortable surface to lie on. If you have a small hand towel, that can be quite handy. Just use as a little bit of cushioning or support for underneath your head, or depending on what other moves do, maybe underneath the knee. Doesn't need to be anything too thick, so just a hand towel is fine. And if you have a foam block, a yoga block, or a thick book, that can be quite useful as well. Okay. Other than that, just comfortable clothing, and you don't need anything on your feet. You can wear socks if you wish, but bare feet is absolutely fine. So I can't see my feet at this moment in time, so I'm just about to move my camera down so we can. Unfortunately, I'm going to cut my head off to do that. Unfortunately, I'm sort of constricted for space here, so to be able to get everything into view, I have to move the camera around. So I've moved my camera down so you can see my feet. We're going to start off in standing, and I want you to have your feet underneath your hips. So front of your hip bones here. Imagine a little plumb line that's going down from the hips through your knees to about your second toe. So feet are facing forwards. Have a think here about where your weight is in your feet. We want to try and get it nice and evenly between the four corners of the feet. So take your weight gently into the balls of your feet, then come back into your heels, and then back to the centre. Allow your weight to go over to one side, then the other, and back to the middle. Let's allow your feet to roll through the soles of your feet, inside edge to outside edge a few times. Softening the soles of the feet, making the ankles nice and loose. Just warming everything up there. So allow the feet to settle back down. Check your knees are soft. And we're going to come up to our hips or pelvis. So we turn to the side so you can see. And to get our pelvis into neutral, what you want to do is imagine your pelvic bones here forming like a bucket shape, and this bucket is filled with water. So we're going to tip that bucket forward, allowing the water to flow out the front, come back the way, so we're tucking your tailbone under, and then repeat that smaller and smaller, making sure here that we're not just bending with the knees, that you are using the pelvis and come back into neutral position. So that bucket will be nice and full and level, not spilling any water. I'm going to move my camera again so that you can see the top half of my body. But in a second, so for the moment, think about your navel and imagine a belt around your navel with 10 notches. You only want to bring it into about notch 3 so that you're not constricting your breathing. So it's just a light tension here. Okay. So where my feet are. Going to our rib cage. You want to think about our ribs being stacked over our pelvis. So what to look for here is that sometimes when people think about standing up straight, is we can send our ribs tilting back a little bit. So if your arm is here behind your body, you want to just bring it back so that it's settling in the middle of the body from the side view. So if you imagine here, a little string going from breastbone down through belly button, down to pubic bone. If we are tilted back in the ribs, that's going to be a bit tight. If you're a little bit forward, a wee bit slunched over, that's going to be loose. You can see that in my t-shirt there. So we want to be just midway, that nice Goldilocks place in between. We want to think about neck and head. So if your head is forward, then you are carrying extra weight in the muscles here at the neck. So let's bring the head back slightly, have it balanced nicely on top of the spine. Imagine a little string from either tips of your ears or the crown of your head, taking it up towards the ceiling. So you get some length in your spine from tailbone all the way through to the crown of your head. Okay. Now that we're in alignment, it's not somewhere we want to be stuck, but it's where we want to start moving from. So let's do a little bit more. We went forward and back, but let's do a little bit of lateral movement. So a side stretch, but not over to the side. Take one hip, let that hip slide down. So bend this knee in the right leg, sliding the right hip down. You can see here my hands, it tilts down. And take the same side, the right hand up towards the ceiling, not closing in round about the ear, but we're going to reach from the bottom of the ribs. So taking a nice big stretch up, open up the body, and back to centre. Let's do the other side. So bending the knee, let the hips slide down, reach up, length, so that the hips tipping away and the ribs are reaching up. Let's do the other side. Sometimes what I see is the hips go off to the side. We're going to try to keep ourselves over our feet, but get some movement laterally in the pelvis and some length in the side of the body. Hopefully you start to feel some space open up around the middle. Okay, let's take our shoulders, give them a little shrug up towards their ears and just let them melt down. So we're going to take the shoulders up. Think about that length in the spine as they slide down. Take that once more. From here, we're going to take the palms to the front, but not just with the wrists, we're going to do it with the shoulder. So rotate through the shoulder joint, palms round towards the front, let the shoulders slide down. And let the arms just be nice and loose from the shoulder joint. Keeping them nice and loose, let's do a wee circle, loosening off that shoulder. And then we'll do the other side. So making sure that we release any tension you're holding around about those shoulders. So don't drive from the elbow here, let the arm be nice and loose. Warm up the shoulder joint. Okay, let's float those arms up to about shoulder height. Exhale, bring them back down by your sides. So breathing in, no effort, shoulders stay nice and relaxed. Exhale, some resistance here as you bring the arms in by your sides. And again, breathing in, exhale, using your back muscles to bring the arms in by your sides. So we're moving the arms, we're thinking about length in the spine. And one more, think about your muscles here, coming down and in as you bring the arms in by your side. Okay, we are going to do a roll down. So we're going to take chin lightly towards collarbone and we're going to fold forward from the hips. I'll show you from the side. So want to keep a nice long spine here and we're not curling over, so that's just keeping some length in your neck. We're going to fold from the hips. Let the knees be nice and soft here. So as you come down, you feel tension at the back of the leg, just let those knees bend. Send chest towards legs, coming down. So the game here is not to try and reach the floor with straight legs. coming down, sending chest towards the front of your legs. Let your head be nice and loose. You can place your hands on your thighs, on your legs, on the floor, wherever they naturally come to. Take a breath here, sink into that, and then tilt pelvis back. And we are going to stack the spine back up, one vertebra at a time. Again, forward fold from the hinge, so from the hips, hip hinge, coming down. So you might feel nice stretching the lower back, the lumbar spine here. If you do, you want to keep this going a little bit longer, that's absolutely fine. Let those muscles lengthen. You can cup the elbows with the hands if you want and just hang out here. And then tilt the pelvis back and stack the spine back up. Remember, bring the head on top of the spine. And let's do one more. Third one, always good. Go a little bit further than you did the first time. You also get a nice mild stretch at the back of the hamstrings here. You don't want that to be too tight, so if you need to bend the knees a little bit more, just do that. Take a breath. Let yourself sink into that stretch, and then tilt the pelvis back and come back up to standing. So I'm going to adjust my camera again so you can see my feet, and I'm going to do a little bit of ankle mobility. Okay, so what we're going to do is a little bit of balance work. So we're going to lift one heel, and if you can, you're going to take that into a foot lift. So you might just want to hover it. If you want to, you can bring the knee up so it's about level with the hip. Let's just hold that for a couple of seconds. Use a bit of support, so if you need to hold yourself against the wall, just do that. And feel those muscles in your supporting foot adjusting, doing little micro adjustments to keep you standing tall. Show you from the side, we'll do the other side. So if you need to keep a toe in contact with the floor, please do. And try and keep the hips quite level. Hover or bring that up to a knee raise. You might be quite steady here, but if the longer you hold it, the more you should start to feel those muscles in about the foot and the ankle starting to move, just to keep you nice and upright. And bring that foot back down. We're going to take it into a nice hip opener, a bit of dynamic hip movement here. So we're going to go into a knee raise in front and then take that foot behind. What to do here, check that as you take that foot behind, you haven't bent forward, because then that hip is not opening at all. It's all coming forward from the back here. So you want to keep the torso nice and upright so you open the front of this hip. So you can use your hands for a bit of balance and reach behind. Up, toe goes behind, up to about level with your hip, and then come back to centre. Let's do the other side. I'll show you this one from the front. And keeping chest open. So you want to feel this front of this hip open up as you send that toe behind once more. And coming back to feet parallel. Let's take the feet a little bit wider and we'll do some squats. So imagine in a chair behind you here, everybody sit down, bottom towards that imaginary chair. So you want to make sure that your bottom is going to go out behind you here as you sink down into that squat. Now try, if you can, to keep the knees going forward here, not coming in towards each other. So we're using the hip muscles and the bottom, the glutes, to push yourselves back up, standing. Once more. Well done. Okay. We're going to come down to the mat now. So hopefully you should be able to see me. So we're going to take yourself down nice and safely to the mat. And we're going to start in our seated position. So you might want to come quite close to the front of your mat here. You want to start with a nice tall spine. If this is a position that you feel is a bit of a struggle, that you can't stack your spine up, maybe take the feet a little bit wider than hip width so that you can roll the pelvis through here, or if you want to, towel is a fantastic thing. Little rolled up towel, just in here behind your bottom, can be a great wee bolster just to help keep your back stacked, your spine stacked. So if you need to, place the hands underneath the thighs, and we are going to tilt the pelvis back. So we're going to get some C curve into that lumbar spine and take yourself back to a position where you have a challenge. Exhale, come back up to seated. I'm going to take the tilt away for the moment, but if you need it, keep it there. Gives you a wee bit extra support. So C curve in the spine, so we're tilting the pelvis back here. You can almost see that in my body, hopefully. And take yourself back. Feel those tummy muscles working. Draw in the front of your ribs back up and stacking that spine. Once more. Tilt the pelvis back. Come back, partial roll down. Using your tummy muscles. Not any strain on the neck, so we're not reaching the arms here. Shoulders are relaxed as we come back up to seated. So either do another 3 of those, or we can take it to a full roll down. So tilting the pelvis back, coming to the floor, taking the hands overhead, and then exhale, peeling the head, the shoulders up, and coming back up to seated. You can keep the knees bent. You can adjust position of your feet. Just come back down. You can take the hands to the side of the head if you want. Taking the hands away from this position is a little bit more challenging because a little bit less weight to help bring you back up. And if you wish to, you could do it with extended legs instead of bent legs. Same thing, all the way down. When we come back up, we're pulling the head and shoulders, and we're using the abdominals to bring ourselves up to seated. Okay. Imagine you've got a big beach ball here in front of you. Get yourself a wee stretch over it. Now we're going to come down to lie on the mat. So yeah, I'm going to use my towel here as a little cushion. So it's just folded a couple of times. And we'll take ourselves down nice and safely. So if you have to one side and then come onto your back. Head on your support, looking up towards the ceiling. Neck in a natural position. Shoulder blades underneath the rib cage. Arms resting lightly on the floor. Check you have contact behind your ribs. Think about your waist, and we don't want that to be pushed into the floor, so we want to have a natural curve here. Equally, not a big arch, so we want to have a neutral pelvis. So you can give yourself a little pelvic tilt back and forward, and come back into a neutral position. Weight nice and even between left and right. And we're going to think about our breathing here. So we're breathing down into the sides of the ribs. Exhale, the ribs are coming back together. And we're imagining the hip bones sliding towards each other. So we're thinking natural, soft breath, not forced. Breathing through the mouth of the nose, whichever is more comfortable for you. Don't hold on to your breath. So we want to try and think about allowing the diaphragm to move. So that's why we're not trying to squeeze the tummy in here. What you are thinking about, instead of thinking about drawing the belly button in, is think about that contraction of the lower muscles by thinking about the hip bones. Imagine that they can draw together, and that will help to engage those lower muscles. So breathing in to prepare. As we exhale, let's start with the knee folds. Always my favourite place to start, because it really helps to tune in to what's happening in and around your core. So as the knee moves out to the side, we pause, inhale, lace up the corset muscles and bring that knee back to the start position. Let's do that again, same leg. Exhale. Opposite hip, you want that to be absolutely velcroed to your mat. So if you feel that starting to roll up here, send it back down, try and keep it nice and still. Exhale as you bring that knee back up. So we are trying to stabilize any movement in the pelvis as the knee moves out. Same side once more. Check that your opposite leg is not joining in the fun. It wants to stay where it is. And exhale, we bring that knee back to the start position. Let's do the other side. So what can happen here is sometimes that opposite leg likes to go out as well, because it acts as a counterbalance. Exhale, bring that leg back up. If you're not too sure, use the hand on the opposite side just to check that your pelvis is staying neutral, to check that your leg is staying where it should be. It can be difficult to sense sometimes what's happening in your body. You think that it's not moving, and sometimes it is. And sometimes vice versa. Sometimes you think it's moving and there's really not much going on. One time more on this side. Bring that knee out to the side. Pause and inhale. And exhale. We're drawing that knee back in. Imagine bringing it back to where it started. Okay, take a breath in here. Exhale. Let's lift this knee above your hip. So check you've not come too far. So if you watch here, what happens if I come too far is this pelvis tilts back, pushing my lower back in towards the mat. So let's take that knee back so it's just above the hip. You can keep your pelvis in neutral here. With a bent leg and a bent neck here, you should be able to do that. If you feel that you're holding this leg up so that it's parallel to the floor, just try and relax that foot down, so that we're not focusing too much on the leg muscles, but more onto the core. And then exhale, bringing that foot back to the floor with control. So we are slowly getting it back down to the mat. Feel your abdominal muscles working to help you with that. And again, let's take the same leg back into the air, knee above hip. And then exhale. Lower that foot down to the floor. So we want to make sure that as we're moving the leg, what's happening in your pelvis. Exhale as the leg comes back up, keeping that same shape in your spine here. And then exhale as you lower that foot down to the floor. Let's do the other side. So we always try and bring the foot down nice and controlled all the way. So it doesn't just dump down at the last minute, but we are still in control, because that last wee bit just before the foot touches onto the mat is where it's furthest away from your center and where you're having to work the most. So exhale, bringing that knee back up. Pause Inhale. So we're doing it really nice and slowly and controlled. It's so much easier to do this quickly than it is to do it slowly. Going slow, it just shows up all of those little movements that you may be trying to hide. And lower that foot back down to the floor. Okay, let's go back to the first leg. We're going to slide your heel out. So I might need to move myself a little bit here. So sliding that leg out. And we are going to exhale, lace up the corset muscles and lift that leg only until, again, you can keep this pelvis from tipping back. So if that means that you only come up so far, that's fine. If you can come up a little bit more, great. Some people might get a good bit further, but for me, it's usually about here is where I want to start to tip my pelvis back. So that's as far as I want to bring my leg. And then lower that leg down to the floor. So we're using an extended leg, a longer lever, more challenge. When it comes back down, again, don't let go here and let it arch forward. We're going to keep that neutral pelvis. Exhale to bring it up. Pause and inhale, and then lower that leg to the floor. Once more. Exhale, bring that extended leg into the air. Pause, and lower it back down to the floor. Making sure we keep that neutral pelvis as if it goes all the way down. Well done. Let's slide that heel back in. Do the other side. So I'm going to slide that heel out. Keeping pelvis neutral. Flex the foot here and bring that leg into the air. You don't need to flex the foot, but for me, I feel like I get a wee bit more stability, a bit more rigidity in my leg when I do that. So again, going with the breath. Exhale as we lift, keeping a thought as to what is happening here in the pelvis. Lower that foot down to the floor. Pause, inhale. We'll lift it once more. And then exhale, lower that leg back down. Nice and lightly, keeping the hips nice and still. Slide that heel back in. Let's just have a wee rest here. Hug the knees into the chest. Place a wee roll from side to side. And lower one foot, then the other, back down to the mat. Check your back into your alignment. Float the hands up towards the ceiling. Let's reach up to the fingertips of one hand and then melt that shoulder back down. Let's reach up on the other side, roll the shoulder off the floor and then send it back down into the mat. This is your start position. We pause and breathe in, and as we exhale, let's take both hands up overhead. So if you've got room here, keeping the back of your rib cage in contact with the floor, and exhale, bringing the hand back towards the ceiling, and can you continue? Take them all the way down to your sides. One breath if you can, and take another one if you need it. And again, so we start position is here, so no effort. Lace up the corset muscles. Exhale, taking the hands up. So if you feel I'm starting to arch my back, don't go any further with the hands. You don't need to get to the floor. It's all about control. Exhale as you bring those hands back up and all the way down by your sides. Keep breathing, making sure you don't hold on to your breath. Let's float the hands back up. We'll do that once more. So we're taking them up overhead. Shoulders stay nice and relaxed and away from the ears. So again, we're not reaching round about your ears. Exhale, bring the hands towards the ceiling and all the way down by your side. Okay. This time we'll do a little bit of shoulder mobility. So we're going to take the hands back up to that start position. We're going to take the elbows out to the sides. Bending 90 degrees at the elbow and then allowing the hands to fold up towards the floor. If you have that range of motion without raising your back off the mat. And then reaching up overhead and sweeping the arms out and round down by your sides. That was both. So we float the hands up towards the ceiling. Elbows bend, going out to the side. Backs of the hands towards the floor, up above your head. Only go as far as you can here. So if you're here, that's all right. Just don't force it. Don't stretch anything that's too tight. We're just going to try and allow those muscles to switch off and allow your hands to go toward the floor. Reaching up overhead and then sweeping out, around and back down by your sides. Lovely. We can give the hands a wee shake there. Make sure the blood's flowing back into your fingers. Okay. So we're going to go on to our side. So we want to just roll over onto one side. And this is where you want to make sure that you are in alignment. So the block or a book is handy, or an extra cushion even, underneath your head here. So that when you lie on your side, your neck is in a nice relaxed position here. And if my head is down on the floor, you can see my neck is twisted to the side. And if I want to bring my hand up to rest on, then what happens is I tend to bring my shoulder out of alignment. So this way I can keep my shoulders stacked one on top of the other and my neck in a good position. We want the hips stacked one on top of the other and the feet extending down towards the bottom of the mat. So check here that you're on your side. So you can take a little roll forward, a little roll back, and then come back onto your side. Top hand, we just want to rest that lightly on the floor in front of you, not be pushing down into it. Feel for a little lift underneath your rib cage so that your spine is in neutral along the horizontal. We then exhale, we're still lacing up the corset muscles and we are lifting that top leg and then lowering. So you want to try and keep yourself in alignment. You can point and flex the foot. If you're struggling to be on your side here, you feel really wobbly, you can either take the feet a little bit further forward of you, or you could bend that bottom leg and give yourself a bit more stability. So different options. So keep going, single leg lift. Let's do about 5 of these. Going with the flow of your breath. Exhale and inhale. Let's do a double leg lift. So if you can. If not, stick with the single leg. Both legs can come up and then lower. So you're going to really feel that contraction here between the ribs and the hips as that area closes down. But we're still engaging all of our core muscles. Let's do one more. I'm going to leave this top leg here, lower that bottom leg down. I'm going to bring that top leg up to meet it, sorry, bottom leg up to meet the top leg, and then lower down. So this is a good wee challenge here. Keep that top leg where it is. Have a rest if you need it. One more. And let's let that leg come down. Let's bend this top knee. Place it on the mat in front of you. If you need an extra cushion underneath, just pop your cushion under there. And then nice long lower leg. Let's bring it up. We squeeze here of the inner thigh muscles. Working those adductors. Last time, and we're going to circle in one direction, circle in the opposite direction, and lower that foot back down to the floor. Wonderful. Let's bring both knees together here, bend about level with your hip. We can pop your cushion a little bit further back. Take both hands out in front of you, palms together. And as you exhale, we're going to draw that top arm up from the elbow. So if you're pulling back a bow, let your head follow your hands. That's why you want to make sure you've got some support underneath it. And then we're going to open up across the body. Okay, I've bumped into my wall, but if you've got room behind you, go as far as you can, whilst keeping your front legs, your legs facing front, and bring those hands back together. And again, drawing back this imaginary bow. Exhale as you bring the hands back round. Once more. Lovely stretch across the front of the body. And exhale. Bring the hands back together. Okay, let's take yourselves over onto the other side. So I'm just going to turn myself around so I'm still facing you, but you can just roll over. Again, we're going to line up along your mat. I think I'm a slight angle here just so that I'm still in camera view. Not kicking my radiator off the wall. So again, head supported, shoulders one on top of the other, hips one on top of the other, legs are nice extended, little lift underneath the rib cage here. So if you find that that's a bit difficult, check what's happened with your hip. If your hip has slid up a wee bit, then you might be slumped into the floor. So just making sure that that hip goes down towards the foot, and you might find that that brings that little lift in. Top hand is resting somewhere on the floor in front of you is fine. So going to breathe in, exhale, reaching the top leg up and lower. So we're not looking for going high here. Yeah, I mean, I can bring my leg a little higher, but what happens here is I sunk into the floor. So we're trying not to do that. We're trying to keep our spine in that neutral position. So reach nice and long through the toes. Stay on the side. And we are working in and around the glutes and the hips as well as at the side of the body. Okay. If you can, let's do double legs. So lifting both legs and lower. So both legs probably go a little bit less in height because you're going to be restricted with that bottom leg. Again, you should still be feeling a fair bit of work going on around your middle. One more. And then we want to bring that top leg up to about hip height and bring the bottom leg up to meet it and lower. Keep and breathing. Keep the breath flowing with the movement. And last one. And we're going to lower that leg down. Let's take that top knee, rest it on the floor in front of you, and let's lift the bottom leg, little squeeze of the glutes. Sorry, not the glutes, the inner thigh. So we're working the adductor muscles. 2 more. And hold it up this time and draw a circle with that foot. Pause, let's go in the opposite direction. And lower that leg down. Let's bring both legs up to about level with your hips. Both hands out in front of you. And going to do the bow and arrow stretch on this side. So we're going to draw that elbow back, follow the head with the hand, open up across the body, and exhale, bring that hand back round. I'm going to do this seated, so same thing. What we're looking for here is a stretch across the front of the body, this collarbone, this chest, and bring that hand back round. Once more. Open up as far as you can. So not into the shoulder, think about this stretch here across the front. And bring that hand back round. Lovely. Okay, so we are going to come on to our front, so we don't need to block this, but a little bit of support underneath your head is nice. So a little cushion or tilt underneath the forehead so that you can keep a nice long neck and look down towards the mat. Again, I'm just going to move my camera down so that you can see me better in this position. I don't have much space. Anyway, so we're going to lie down, full length on your front, head, forehead resting on your cushion or your towel, and legs extended along the floor. Find just a comfortable position for the moment for your hands. So what you're looking for here to draw your spine into neutral. So we're going to try and draw your belly button up from the floor. So imagine I've popped a wee ice cube underneath here and you're just going to try and draw that belly button up. So if I place a hand here, I would feel slight pressure as you bring your spine into neutral. On the front of your body, you want to have contact with the front of your hip bones and your pubic bone, ideally. And we're going to do some leg lifts. So we're going to breathe in, and as we exhale, lift one leg, reaching nice and long, and then lower back down. To the other side. So we're lifting that leg, keeping those points of contact. So it's all about opening the front of that hip joint and not achieving that leg lift by bending the knee or by lifting the back. So focus very much on keeping the front of the body in contact with the mat, not rolling from side to side, and going with your breath. So as you exhale, you lift, and then inhale and lower. Again, not worrying about the height of the leg, more think about that reaching through the toes. And lower that foot down. We are going to imagine that you're going to lift both legs. So if you see here, I can lift both legs, but that can, if you're not careful, put a wee bit of strain in the lower back. So what we want to try and do is imagine that's what you're going to do. Exhale and squeeze those muscles, activate those muscles without creating any compression in your lower spine. And then release. So keeping the head down towards the floor, belly button towards the spine. Imagine you're trying to lift both legs and release. Once more. And relax. Okay, now we're going to do our darts. So we take the hands down by your sides. And then as you exhale, we're going to turn the hands in towards the thighs, reach down through the fingertips, drawing those shoulder blades back and together. And then inhale, let the shoulders just melt back down to the floor. I hope you can hear me, muffled as I look towards the floor. Turning the palms in, reaching down through the fingers. So you might feel like your head gets drawn a little bit up from the floor. That's okay. But don't try to lift it. Don't actively try to lift it. So turn the palms in again. Think about that belly button. Still want to try and draw it towards the spine. And then let the shoulders melt back down towards the floor. Let's take the hands up about level with the head. As we exhale, so you can just float the forehead off the mat. And if that feels okay, you can exhale, lift the forehead and the arms. Only an inch or so off the mat. We're not looking to go high here, we're just taking the weight off them with your back muscles. So drawing the belly button in and using the back to take the weight of the upper body. Once more. And lower back. Let's do a nice spinal extension here. So we're going to lift the head to look forward, coming up onto the forearms. And you can see already that's a back bend. And if your back is okay with it, pushing into the hands and extending that bend a little bit more. And then lower back down to the floor. So don't overdo this, because what will happen is if you push into the hands and you've gone beyond the point of your spine articulation, you're going to lift the hips off the floor. So we want to keep them, the legs in contact with the floor, and then lower back down. Don't force this. Listen to your body, be kind to it. Just go with your own range of motion. So if that means resting here, if that feels like a nice back bend to you and you're getting some openness across the front of the body, that's absolutely fine. Only go up higher if your body is okay with it. And then lower back down. Okay, I'm going to reach up overhead. I'm going to come down my mat a wee bit because I don't have room yet. I'm disappearing out of shot, but we're going to take the hands up overhead. Imagine something just beyond your fingertips. So you're just going to reach nice and long, pull all the way down the side of the body and release. Other side, reach through those fingertips and release. So as you reach with one hand, imagine the toes on the opposite foot pulling away behind you. And to the side, nice and long, and then release. Take the hands back underneath the shoulders, and we take ourselves back onto our knees, and take your bottom down towards your heels. So again, if you need a little bit of support, pop a wee cushion underneath the bottom here. If you wish to take the knees a little bit wider, and then we're going to fold down, take the forehead down towards the mat, into a child's pose. Let the back muscles lengthen, and just take a couple of breaths in this position. So you're looking for some length in the lower back. All the muscles in the back, which is what we want to give them a chance to switch off and release. Okay, so from here, we're going to do a little bit work on 4-point, which is on hands and knees. So if you come up onto your hands and knees, we want the knees underneath hips. You can have toes tucked under or toes flat, depending on what your preference is. If your knees need a bit of extra padding underneath there, put some cushioning underneath. If your wrists aren't very comfortable with this position, you want to try, if you can, have the hands nice and flat, about shoulder width apart. You can take them up onto fists if you want to keep the wrists straight, if that feels better. Or if it really is uncomfortable, come down onto elbows, forearms. And yes, that means your shoulders are lower than your hips, but you can still maintain a nice long spine from here. So just making sure that we're not arched over, that you're bending through the hips and you have a nice long spine. Coming back up myself onto my hands, and we want to look down towards the mat so that your back of your neck is nice and long. We're going to do a rhomboid push up here. So this one causes confusion sometimes. So again, we're starting with a nice flat back here, and we're going to sink down through the shoulders. So if you look at my shoulders, you hopefully can see them slide the shoulder blades around my rib cage. I'm not arching my back. You can see it's staying nice and straight. Push into your hands and send the rib cage back up. Then I'm going to let the chest slide towards the floor. So it's the shoulder blades that we are moving around about the ribs, using the upper back muscles here to do that. And around about the back and shoulders. Once more. So the arms are staying straight and back up between them, and then back to neutral position. We are going to take ourselves back off our wrist for a moment, get a little bit of ease in the wrists, because that can be quite an unusual position for your weight to be on your wrist like that. So it's nice to give them a little, just do it in short bursts and just give them a chance to relax. We come back into 4 points, and we're going to do our Superman, Superwoman, first Superwoman stretch. So we're going to take one foot out behind, lift that leg to about hip height. So what to watch for here is don't tilt the hips and you don't sway off one side or the other. We try to keep the torso nice and steady. If you're steady enough here, we're going to lift the opposite hand and then bring both hand and arm and leg back underneath. Let's do the other side. So toe along the floor, lift the leg to about hip height. Again, trying to minimize any sway going on here, and then taking that opposite hand out, back under, back to 4 point. So if you feel particularly unsteady, keep both hands on the floor. Just work on doing the leg. And if you need a rest at any time, come back off the wrist, give them a wee shake out, circle the wrist, take some pressure off of the wrist. When we've done, let's say 5 either side is an absolute maximum. While I'm talking there, you might have done a couple more. Right back in. And then we're going to sit back down, bottom towards the heels again, stretching through. Nice long back If your shoulders don't like this, bring your hands around towards your feet. And making a little bit extra stretch into the side of the body. We're taking the hands over to the side of the mat. Back to the centre. And then over to the other side. So we're going to finish off with a little bit of a thoracic stretch. So thoracic is the upper back here. So we've been working the back a wee bit. So we want to just make sure we ease it off. So taking one hand through the gap between your opposite hand and knee, reach along, so bring that shoulder down towards the floor. Feel the stretch across the upper back. Come back to center. Take that hand up towards the ceiling. Back to center. Other side, so we reach through. Come back through center. Open up across the body. Back to middle. And then we're going to come back up standing. So tucking the toes under. Come back onto your feet. And back up to upright. So finish off as you did at standing. I'm just going to sit down because please move my camera around again. So if you're standing, feet are nice and level underneath your hips, weight is even and spread through the corners of your feet. Crown of the head is up towards the ceiling. We're going to give the shoulders a little lift up, let them slide down. Give yourself a little shake. Bring yourself back to whatever else you've got going on in your day. And I hope you've enjoyed that class.